Good morning and welcome to Graceway Church's Women's Bible Study. We're continuing on in our Lifeway books. We're going to be on session number 3 today. If you have the book, that starts on page 38. Our lesson today is on honoring parents. If you've been keeping up to date, you know that this 6-week session here is on the 10 Commandments. And today we come to the command to honor your father and mother. The article starts with a personal story on page 39 that Pastor Evans has told about the importance of family name and family reputation. Very good story. Take a few minutes to read through that. But I'm going to kind of cut that out because this is a long lesson today, and I'm going to try and see if I can cut corners here and there to squeeze it in around that half-hour mark. So let's start with the first opening question here. What's your favorite memory with one of your parents? There are many, but one that seems to recur with me is just a memory of a short little time. For some reason, I'm not even sure why, my father and I were alone around mealtime. Now, I came from one of those traditional families where your mother was the one who always fixed the meals and cleaned the house and did all of that. But in this case, I was about 8 or 9, and I was actually home for a lunch alone with my father. And what he did is he went to the kitchen, scrambled up a big pan of eggs, scrambled eggs, put them on one plate, put the plate in the middle of the table, and the two of us ate scrambled eggs off of this plate with our fingers, one plate. And that's one of the only times I ever remember my father being just silly. And that's a memory that, I keep coming back 40 years later now. And I'm sure most of you have, favorite memories or good memories with your parents. Not all of us are blessed to have that, but most of us. Let's start on page 40 with Exodus 20:12, and this is the commandment that we're going to be working on today, and that is, honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So, what is the meaning of honor? The Greek word for honor means to value highly, or to hold in highest regard. But children never reach an age where they don't owe their parents honor. There may be some discussion over when and when not we have to obey our parents, but we should always honor our parents. And God is serious about honoring parents. Because God understands the whole picture. He knows it's not simply about having a good day or a peaceful home, but its honor is tied to advancing his kingdom. Honoring people, honoring our parents is tied to our integrity. Our honor ourselves is that we can show honor to our parents. Question number 2. What are some ways that we can honor our parents? And there's a lot of them, but of course the first one that comes to my mind, especially as a parent of teenagers, is to show respect. Watch how we talk to them. It's very easy, either as a teenager or a young adult still living at home, or even as those of us who are older, it's very easy to have a dismissive attitude, or even if it's not rebellious, kind of a you're not important attitude. You roll your eyes, you dismiss their opinion, you cut them off when they're starting to talk. All of these little ways of showing disrespect in the way that we talk to our parents. But there's a lot of other ways, and right now we're going to move on to page 41, and the author, Dr. Evans, is going to talk about some other ways that we can honor our parents. And the first one he's got listed there on page 41. Emotional honor. Parents are honored emotionally by spending time with them and showing genuine concern and love. This is especially pertinent to those of us, that are older and our parents are getting older. No matter what, your parent is still your parent. And the command to honor your parents comes from God himself. And there are several ways we can honor our parents, just like there are several ways we can dishonor our parents. But this emotional honor has to do with, recognizing our parents' emotional needs and spending that extra time to call them, to talk to them, to calm their anxieties if that's pertinent, to just love on them in a real tangible way. Honoring our parents does not end when we become adults. And we're not allowed an out if we disagree with the things they did or the way that they raised us. So in addition to emotional honor, there's also a verbal honor. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, but he takes it a step farther and says we need to always teach with respect, talk with respect. Even when, our parents are older and we're going to their house, we become almost friends sometimes, but we still need to remember they are our parents. And it's not, you don't just talk to them like you would any other friend. It's not like, hey, how's it going? You continue to use the yes ma'am and the yes sir and continue to show them that certain degree of respect, that you honoring your parents. We are to speak also about our parents with honor. A lot of times it's easy to, we can fall into a trap of talking about the people that we love the most, be it our spouse, our kids, or even our parents. We can fall into the trap of speaking of them like, oh, she's so annoying. She takes so much time. She is crazy. She is, and speak about them with dishonor. So we also need to be very careful the things we tell others, even our siblings, about our parents, and be sure that we're always speaking honorably about them. And then the third one here is something I hadn't really thought of, but it's very pertinent, is financial honor. In 1 Timothy 5:8, Paul wrote, "If any of you would provide not for his own, and especially not for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." So this is kind of showing that we need to be financially taking care of our family. And then in verse 16, Paul wrote, "If any man or woman that believeth hath widows, let them relieve them, and let not the church be charged." So at that time, the church took care of the poor, the widows, the ones that had nobody else to take care of them. But here Paul's pointing out that says, if there are widows in your own family, you need to be taking care of them. You need to be helping to support them. And it doesn't deal with just specifically widows, but elderly people in your family, particularly your parents or your grandparents, that need financial help. I mean, they should look to us first. As family, we should look after them first, before they should have to go to the government or the church for assistance. Honoring our parents means we have a financial responsibility for them when they can no longer take care of themselves. This means more than just buying them a card on Mother's Day or Father's Day or an occasional gift. It means seeing about their well-being, making sure they're okay when they need assistance. So those are some ideas, and it's by no means an exhaustive list of ways that we can show honor to our parents. But question number 3 on page 42. How are ways that our culture or our society shows dishonor to parents? And right now, there's a lot of dishonor to elders in general. Our parents, as well as some of the older people, older in nursing homes or living alone even. And it's become so accepted, it's so pervasive. It's a little more apparent to people of my generation because we know how it used to be, but it's everywhere. Everything from the TV and movies and so-called entertainment, to where the parents are often portrayed as, idiots, fools, don't know what they're talking about, and it's actually shown even as the right or best thing to do to dishonor or disobey your parents. And that shows that theme occurs a lot in media nowadays, in entertainment nowadays. Another thing that I noticed that our culture is real big on is we tend to blame all of our own character flaws and our troubles, our mental health troubles. We're quick to blame our parents for that. And I think, although there may be some truth in it sometimes, I think also it can be very dishonoring for us to blame the mother or blame our parents rather than taking responsibility ourselves for our own choices, our own decisions. So on the bottom of page 42, we're going to go away from the Ten Commandments and go into a story in the Old Testament about King David's son. And this is in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verses 7 through 12. And it came to pass, after 40 years, that Absalom said to the king, I pray thee, let me go and pay my vow, which I have vowed unto the Lord in Hebron. For thy servant vowed a vow when I abode at Geshur in Syria, saying, If the Lord shall bring me again indeed to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord. And the king said unto him, Go in peace. So he arose and he went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, As soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. And with Absalom went 200 men out of Jerusalem that were called, and they went in their simplicity, and they knew not anything. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel the Gileonite, David's counselor, from his city, even from Gilo, and he offered sacrifices. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. That's a little bit of a wordy passage, and to really understand it, you kind of have to have some of the backstory. So Absalom, the son of King David, here he's talking about, he's telling the story where Absalom is wanting to overthrow the king. So he tells King David, I'm going to go down to this other country and, to worship God, as sacrifice for God. But really his whole plan was to take these men, go to not another country, but another city away from Jerusalem, take these men and set up like his own rule and tell everybody, look, I've taken over for King David. I'm now the king, and just start his reign from this other city. So Absalom is actually David's third son, and the way Absalom was raised, if you really want a soap opera, you can go back and read through 2 Samuel and all of the things that were going on in David's family's life at that time. But almost all of David's marriages, and he had several wives, were created for the sake of political dominance or political ties. And so there is no doubt a sense of jealousy and rivalry among his wives and his many children. He had favorites. He had a lot of wives that he married just for political reasons. So he had all of that going on, and that was kind of how the atmosphere Absalom was raised in. In addition, if you've heard the story of David and Bathsheba, he has that sin and that drama in his life, and that unleashed a whole series of consequences on his family. So David was not really an upstanding father, and his home was in no way, a picture of, the ideal family. and there is, like, if you'll read on the pages 43 and 44, it just goes into several different things that were going on in David's family. And this is just a list of some of the dysfunction. Like I said, that whole chapter would be a very interesting read for anybody who really likes the reality shows or the talk shows on TV, because a lot of that, is right in there. But that just gives you some background on what Absalom was doing here. So Absalom sought to honor himself at the expense of his father. So after he returned from exile, and that's part of the story earlier, he actually was exiled for killing his half-brother Amnon. So after he returned from exile in the town, he was seeking to take over the rule from David. And this was actually a plot that was a few years in the making, where he was just gathering popularity and gathering ground support. And in this passage, it tells the story of when he just goes to establish himself as king. And David's sinful behavior and the way Absalom was raised did not, however, excuse his behavior now. So Absalom now dishonored his father, starting with a lie, telling his father he was going to go do something when he really had a different motive, and then trying to take over the kingdom against his father's wishes, because his father had wanted to pass that kingdom on to a different son. So this is the start of this whole story. We cannot honor our parents when there is a lack of truthfulness or integrity in the way that we talk about them. So that was his first mistake. But then also, Absalom's dishonoring actions also brought more great adversity. Although he thought, he may have thought he had the right to do this. And a lot of people would say, well, he came from all of this background of hurt and dysfunction. Still, God does not excuse that. And because of his actions, actually it brought a lot of pain onto the house of Israel, the whole nation of Israel, and it brought his own death. So if we go back to that, back to Exodus 20, and often this promise, this is considered, what they mention it as, the first command with promise. And the command says, honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord giveth to thee. So the Lord is actually promising us a blessing in return for obeying this command. And I think if you look at that, the flip side of that is, as it shows here in this story, that disobeying that command is going to cause pain and death and destruction and more dysfunction and just a snowball of problems. And that's exactly what happened with Absalom. So question number 4. How did your desire to honor your parents impact your decisions? Then this is a personal question where you look back on your life. You can also plug in the lives of your children or your parents and think, desires to honor your parents, how is that going to affect your decisions? And I have fallen short in this so many times. So I would say for myself, one of the ways that I choose to honor my parents is no dirty laundry. The things that happened, the things that, maybe I didn't agree with my parents, the ways that I felt like maybe they did my parents wrong. My parents did me wrong, either way in the past or just a little bit in the past. No dirty laundry. I'm not going to be going on and telling everybody else about, this service they did me, or this way that I had it bad. And I think that's one way that we can honor our parents. I need to do better. But another thing, is to help support and care for your parents. Now, my mother is not, my father's been gone for a long time, and my mother's not in a point where she actually needs my help, financially or physically. But just to, to help out with things like, mowing the lawn or helping to take care of the house or taking her a place or, these sort of things, I think is a way to honor and support your parents. I think it used to be easier for us to do these things because, like when I was a kid, society supported that. We were expected to honor our elders. We were expected to respect our parents. And everybody expected it. And, most kids did it. So, peer pressure alone made it easier. I think it's become very trying now. It's something we have to consciously think about doing and consciously make decisions that, regardless of the situation, I am going to choose to honor my parents. So let's continue on in 2 Samuel and, finish up more about the story here. And this picks up at verse 13. And there came a messenger to David, saying, the hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom. David said unto all his servants that were with him at Jerusalem, arise, and let us flee, for we shall not escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly and bring evil upon us and smite the city with the edge of the sword. So the last passage was talking about, Absalom's deceitful setting up, letting everybody know that he's taking over the kingdom from David. When David hears about that, the first thing he does is say, ooh, let's make a run for it. Everybody, all of the people on my side, my close family, my servants, my close men, let's get out of Jerusalem. Because I know Absalom, and I know he won't hesitate to hurt or kill us and bring evil upon us and evil upon the city, so we need to get out of here. Had this been an election, it would have just meant that David needed to step down and Absalom was taking over. But in that day, defeat usually meant the death of whoever died. So David was right to be afraid. David knew Absalom, and he knew that he would not spare his life just because he was his father. So David packs up and leaves. Now, later on in the story, and it's not really revealed here in this articles, but Absalom ends up, being killed. He was not the one God had chosen to be king. He was not the one that David had chosen to be king. He had just decided to dishonor his father by taking over this position. So he ended up being killed for that, and a lot of other men too in the battle that came about. David's heart was broken because his son was killed, and the dysfunction, the hard feelings, everything just continued on. And I think that's funny because dishonor has a way of recycling itself. It continues to come back and come back and come back through our relationships. That's why it is so critical for us to display integrity and honesty in all aspects of our lives. Absalom was fully responsible for his rebellion. Even though, he had dysfunctional problems and David wasn't the best of parents, still, Absalom was responsible for what he did. And he was punished for what he did. But his rebellion is going to carried on and affected the lives of his children, as well as, his siblings and all of that. So I wonder if, when I turn this around and look at myself, and like I said earlier, I'm the parent of teenagers, and that's a trying time for any of us. But it's crossed my mind a time or two. I wonder if some of the disrespect, that I get shown by my children at times, is that just a direct result of some of the disrespect that I've shown my parents in the past? Could it be that I'm not modeling well enough respecting my parents, that my kids see that and understand that that's how you're supposed to treat parents. That's how you're supposed to talk to parents. All parents, unfortunately. Me, for sure. My parents, yes. And all other parents have done things that's going to make it difficult at times for their parents to show respect. For their children to show respect. I mean, we mess up. Some of us mess up really bad. But that does not excuse our kids from respecting us. But a way we could make it easier for our kids to learn to respect is for us to turn around and respect our children. Respect them enough to tell them when we've messed up and ask their forgiveness. Show them respect and honor and talk correctly to them. Talk to them the way we would like them to talk to us. So set a better example and try to break that endless cycle of disrespect and dysfunction. If I don't help my children learn respect by insisting on it, by showing it and demonstrating it and modeling it, then what I'm doing really is I'm bringing that curse, that consequences into their life, because they're the ones that are going to have to pay the price for it. So then now I want to go back. I skipped over a place on page 45, and there's another story here. We went through the story of Absalom and his father, and this is another story in the Bible. And this story is in 2 Kings chapter 2. And God has given us another case story that shows just how strongly he feels about dishonor. And this, like I said, I'm going to read 2 Kings 2, 23 and 24. And he was going up by the way, and the he here is Elijah. And there came Elisha, and there came forth little children out of the city and mocked him, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. And then there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 children of them. Now, that is a dramatic story, a hard story out of the Bible. It's hard for us to understand. I think part of a key to understanding it is to understand these were not innocent little children. These were younger people, young adults or teenagers, and this was not just a matter of them, teasing or mocking per se the man of God. They were actually being in your face disrespectful, and they were. It was God's prophet or God's man that they were disrespecting in a big way, and their disrespect brought death. 42 of them died, and died immediately because of what they were doing. So the reason they brought this story up is for you to stop and realize how important this is to God. When he says to honor and respect your parents, he takes dishonor and disrespect very seriously. Like I said, that sin cost these 42 young people their lives. And I think that even though that's a big dramatic story, isn't that exactly what's happening in our life today? Many of the kids, many of our children are dying. They're, dying from crime. They're dying in prison. They're dying from drugs. They're dying, at the hands of other people because they're disrespecting their parents and the teachings that their parents gave them. It's a coding. It's costing kids their lives even today. Although the shocking story, these kids died immediately, and in our everyday life, it tends to take a few years for these people to play out and for their deaths to come. There are so many people who are dying because they did not respect the commands and the teachings of their parents. So let's move on to page 47. This is, 46. Our final question, question number 5. Whom do you know that models a parent-child relationship in a way that honors God? I've been blessed to know several people. And like I said, when I was younger, many years ago, it was more common. So I saw, several families that had a lot of respect for your elders built in. But the one that came to my mind this morning is actually in our own church. When I see the way that Pastor Derek honors his mother-in-law, and the things that he goes out of his way to take care of her and to do for her and make sure she's taken care of, financially, physically, emotionally, he's always looking out for her. And everybody knows that he's going to look out for her. And I think that's a very good example, that we could model. And it's even more touching in the fact that it's, it's not his biological mother, but his mother-in-law. So, and I'm sure you've got pictures in your own life, pictures of parents or elders, pictures of people in the church, examples of, that true honor and respect. So now we move on to page 47 and just live it out. This is the part of the lesson that's always at the end where the author gives some practical ways that we can apply this lesson to our life. And the first thing they say is repent. I think this just goes hand in hand with the pastor's message today. We've all failed one way or another. When it comes to showing our parents honor, or when it comes to living in a way to make it easy for to make it easy for our children to honor us. And the article says we've all failed in one way or another, but the truth is we've all failed in many ways. We need to recognize that and confess it for the sin that it is. Repent of that ways that we are either dishonoring our parents or causing our children to dishonor us. And then make a decision that we're going to model this honor. Become a model of truthfulness and integrity in front of your kids. Become a model of how you are to honor and respect your parents, your elders, your grandparents, and but most importantly, make sure that you model this in front of your children and your grandchildren, as well as the children of other people, and show children how it's supposed to be. Then number 3, act. Carry out a tangible act of honor. Do something tangible to help and support your parents. If it's something as simple as a text or a phone call, making a decision that you're going to text or call every day, check on them every day. Maybe it's a financial thing, helping to pay a bill or make a home repair. A lot of times it's a time thing. Time to go visit, time to make the call, time to do what they need, time to just let them know that you're thinking of them, time to pray for them. For each one of us, it's going to be a little bit different, but we need to not just be honoring them with our words, but honoring them with our actions as well. And then, I also mentioned earlier, and I want to reiterate this because this is an area that sometimes I struggle with. When you're honoring your parents with your words is not only to their face. Honoring your parents with your words is making sure that everything you say to or about them is respectful and honoring. And, so we need to be very careful in living to this commandment and showing honor to our parents. Then let's go back one more time and look at that, because I think it's important to point out that this is the first commandment with promise. And the promise is that they did that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord God has giveth thee. And days long upon the land. This was the promised land that he was talking about. This wasn't any land. So he's not specifically talking about long life here. He's talking about the promised land life, the wonderful, abundant life. And he promises abundant life, a wonderful life to people who can consistently honor their parents. So come back next week and we're going to pick up another commandment and be talking about honoring and respecting human life. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week.